everyone, it's Kerri-Ann, and today I wanted to do a little comparison video between two of my favourite products, Infusions and Brusho powders. Now, Infusions, I have a really big collection. I have been using them for quite a few years, so I've been using them when I was sort of in the design and craft industry as well as the arts industry, and you can see that I've got quite a collection now here. So Infusions are by a company called Paper Artsy, and you can find them online, but they're also available via Devon Art Supplies on the website and in store, so obviously that's where we get ours. But Paper Artsy are what I would probably say a mixed media brand, known quite well in the sort of craft industry, but aren't really yet known as well in the art industry. However, I would argue that their pigment powders, as I call them, but they call themselves coloured stains, I would argue their Infusions cross over really well into the art market. Some of the names are quite quirky for the colours. So you've got a bit Jaded, Blackcurrant, Violetta, Rusty Car, Frankly Scarlet. You've got some really fun quirky names, but the colours are just fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some swatching with them so you can see a couple of ways of, you know, the classic ways of how to use them, but also how they look in comparison to what's quite well known in the art industry, which are Brushos. Now, Brushos are manufactured by Colourcraft. They're actually manufactured in the UK. I'm not 100% sure where Infusions are manufactured, but these are definitely UK manufactured. They come in a wide range of colours. I've actually, with the Brushos, which I have got in a slightly more limited range, because I actually started with Infusions and then moved over to Brushos just so I could see the comparison, see the difference in the colours. But they're more well known in the art industry, so you may have come across them if you are more sort of artsy. So it actually came with a flyer, which didn't with the Infusions, but the Colourcraft, the Brushos actually came with a flyer to give you the sort of information on the colours, and as you can see there's a really big range of colours. I myself haven't got the full set yet, but obviously I will. It gives you some information on them. They're acid free, they're non-toxic, highly pigmented, and obviously they burst with the water, so you can use them in lots of different ways. You can use both, actually, both of the powders in lots of different ways, with crafting, scrapbooking, stenciling, artwork, lots of different things. I have found that they are quite good in terms of standing up to the UV as well, so once I've used them in artwork, personally I found that they stand up really well. They also give you some ideas on how to use the Brusho with PVA, or mixing with other mediums, making your own paints, using sort of thickers like gum arabic and various others to make more thick paints. There's so many ideas, so many ways you can use Brushos and Infusion powders. I think really the only main difference I would say that I've come across is the variation in the colours available. So if I show you what I mean, let's have a quick look first at some of the Infusions, so that you can unscrew the lids as you can with the Brushos. You can undo. You can do that, and you can use a stick if you want to and tap it out. I personally prefer to make a tiny tack hole in the top, so I literally just put a little pin that you would get on a pin board, so the ones like this, and I just pop it through, and that is how I make the holes in all of them. I then store them in a box like this, and I put the lid on, and then they don't move around too much. You can, if you want to, put a little bit of masking tape over the top. I've seen quite a few people do that, so that's another way that you can do it. So I've just got a blank piece underneath, but I'm actually going to be working on these. And to hand I've got brushes and a water pot and spritzer sprays as well. So the spritzer sprays come in different misters. So watch out when you're buying your misters. You want one that is a fine mist. You do not want a heavy spray like you would have maybe with a big water sprayers that you often get for hair and things like that. You don't want a heavy mist. You want a really fine, light mist. So I've got both of these and a water pot to hand. Now, when I'm doing swatching, which I do with all of my sort of paints and things, for the Brusho and for the Infusion, I usually note down which it is that I'm using. So I'm just going to put the infusion there and the colour here. So I'm going to use Green Man initially. Now it's important to remember when using Brusho and infusion powders that you do not need very much. So light tapping and you'll start to see the pigment powder come out, or colour stain as they call it. That there, I don't know if you can actually see that, but that there's plenty for what I need. So you will find that these will last, these infusions especially, a really, really, really long time. I've had mine, as I say, for years and none of them have run out yet. So they are just absolutely fantastic. So I hold the mister up quite high and I'm just going to do a few little spritzes. And I don't want to over spritz because the more water you add, the more it will puddle and pool. I'm then going to get a wet brush and I'm also going to show what it looks like when you brush with them. So I'm actually going to brush the bottom part here just so you can see. And you've got a really light colour here where I've pulled down the pigment as much as I can. Then you've got it much darker where you're hitting more of the colour crystals. Now if you want to, you can go back in with it. I'll put it away in the box, here we go. You can go back on top and tap in, and you can see there where it bursts even more. So you can do that. You can spritz the water on top, you can do water and then tap the crystals on, or you can brush in like I showed you just then. And the colour will change depending on what crystals have popped the most. So you can see a bit of yellows coming in there, a bit of brown, a bit of blue. But all in all, when you're actually mixing them and when you pop them, you can use little palettes like this and tap it in, then use the water. All in all, you'll get a real green, deep green, like you can see here, to paint with. So I can pick it up and paint around with it. So that's obviously just Green Man there. We'll leave that one to settle there. Often it will look slightly different when it's settled, so always take a look at when it's dry to sort of see what it's going to look like. Let's go for another one. Let's have a look at Frankly Scarlet. So again, this is another infusion. So again, very fine. And that's why I only have a tiny, tiny little hole in these. Then I need my mister. Really beautiful one. I'm going to wet the brush again, but I'm not going in with too much water, but I'm just going to... So you can see the strength of the colour is just fantastic, really beautiful, and it pulls out just like a watercolour would. Really, really pretty. Again, you've got where the water's hitting the different crystals, you've got the different colours coming out through, but then when you actually mix them together, you get this beautiful colour here. And hopefully you can start to see now that green is really developing nicely in the Green Man one there. So this is just really to showcase how fantastic infusions are in terms of their ability to be used in art as well as craft. Because I know that when artists are actually looking at which one's best to go for their art as opposed to crafters, they don't often think that infusions will do what they want them to do, but I personally think they're brilliant. I think they really do work well. And the colours, in my opinion, I think the colours are actually better in infusions than Brusho. I think the way that they've created the colour mixes, I like the mixes better. I find that the colours sort of are better chosen, if that makes sense. So the way they've got the coordinating colours together, I think that they just complement each other beautifully. Whereas some of the Brushos, I get a bit confused as to why they've put certain ones together, if that makes sense. And I don't know, there's just something I love about the infusions. And the quality of them, I just think they're fantastic. So I do think that they're slightly overlooked in terms of the art industry. I personally use them all the time in artwork, but I do think they are slightly overlooked as an art product. So that's another one, that's Violetta. There are lots more that we could go through, and I think what I'll do is I'll do a separate video of swatching so that you can see all of them done and all of them swatched. But what I'll do now is just show you a couple of the Brusho ones, just so you can see in comparison how they react and how quickly they do as well. So let's try this one. This one's called Sandstone. So you do have to tap a little bit harder for this one. for it to actually come out. So I can see some of it there. So the crystals come out roughly the same size because I've got exactly the same size hole here. But interestingly, the colour I find, well, you'll see in a second, it doesn't quite do the same thing. Maybe it's the crystals need to be, I don't know, bigger or something for them to work better. Can you see there where I've made a bigger hole? Bigger crystals come out. Let's see what happens. So let's check that my sandstone. Let's just see. So straight away you can see that the finer the mist, the better, really, in my opinion. Let's just bring some of it down here. So I'd probably say actually this is quite a nice one. Obviously it's looking much paler. It hasn't got the strength of colour as the Infusions. Maybe you need more to make it work, you know, in stronger. Let's have a look. Yeah, so, you know, I mean, I've worked in both for quite a while now, but I hadn't actually side to side compared them. And I would definitely say that you need more to get the better strength of colour in the Brusho. I'm just going to note this down before I forget which one it is. If you start to hear pitter-pattering, that is the rain. It's raining out here again. I mean, obviously my studio is a conservatory, so it does sound quite noisy when the rain's there. It's really quite relaxing actually when I'm on my own, but when I'm filming it's quite distracting. So yeah, I would say you need slightly more of it to get the strength of colour, but the colours, this one particularly, is actually quite nice. Let's go for another one. Let's see what other one we can go for. So this is going to be Brusho. Let's choose another colour. Burnt Sienna? Let's go Burnt Sienna. Again, you can use these similar to how I was saying with the Infusions. You can actually tap them into a little palette and create your own watercolour palette. You can spritz them, brush them, however you want to do it. So if I just put a tiny amount there, just to see the spritzing, and then let's pour them down. Actually, that one is, you don't need quite so much. It's quite nice and strong. I'm guessing the more I put on, the stronger it becomes. So again, we're going dry onto the wet there, and then we're doing dry onto dry, spritzing with wet to get this effect at the top. The more water, the more spared out you can see it turns out, but I quite like it when it's like this, when it's got that separated, dusty, sort of speckly look. I like this as well, where you tap it onto the wet. I do like that. So this was Burnt Sienna. I should have really done that when it's dry, but otherwise I'll forget which colour it is. So yeah, so that's a couple of the Brushos. I've actually got some more that I started doing before filming. So this is the Brusho Yellow. This is the Brusho Moss Green. This is the Olive Green, which, quite an odd name for that one. It was a bit of a strange one. And the Lime Green Brusho. So, all in all, if I'm saying Brusho versus Infusion, I don't really know what I would say is better. I think they both have some things that are better than the other, if that makes sense. So the support and the fact that of this and the educational side of this for the artists online and you know, the flyers and material you get is fantastic. That's maybe lacking in Infusions, but in terms of its actual usage, they're both fantastic. They both, for me, have been brilliant in my artwork and my craft work. I do think the colour ranges I like better in Infusions, but then I do love the quality of the colour that you can achieve with the Brusho. So, all in all, I say do what I've done, get them both, you know, because the colours, none are identical in either or. So you're not going to get the same here as you're going to get the same there, from what I have found. I can't be 100% sure on that, but from what I have found, they are completely different in what colours they end up with. So personally, I would say get yourself a collection of both. Start with one or two colours, the colours you use most of, and build up your collection as you go. So hopefully you found this video interesting. Please do subscribe to my channel and like the videos that I do. It really helps me to create the creative content for you, and I've got loads of ideas of things that I'd like to share with you going forward for comparing art products, reviews, actually showcasing art. So I really hope that you will follow my journey and enjoy the video content I make. Thanks for watching everyone, and have a great day!